Hello, good evening, welcome to North West Tonight. I'm Roger Johnson. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday evening. Our top story: there's no hope of redemption. Former inmates on the Cheshire Women's Prison with the country's highest suicide rate.
I was notified with a piece of paper that came under the door that an inmate had taken their own life. I was devastated. She was a baby.
The prison says its mental health budget has recently tripled, with greater support for inmates. Also tonight, troubled times for the royals, but Queen Camilla gets a big welcome on the Isle of Man.
For anybody, never mind somebody of their status, to come to visit us, it is an incredible honour.
Here's the England boss Gareth Southgate being lined up to be the next Manchester United manager.
I'll see you soon, goodbye for now, use Jack.
Dear Elizabeth, the treasure trove of Victorian love letters which inspired a song.
And we may well have had the spring equinox for today, but as we head towards the weekend, it's going to start to feel a bit more like winter. A full forecast coming up later in the programme.
Well, first tonight, as you may have heard, today the government announced a ban on 15 powerful synthetic opioids, which have been linked to the deaths of more than 100 people. Here in the northwest, the effect of the drugs, known as nitazines, are already having a devastating impact. We're less than 3 months into 2024, and yet one Lancashire community worker says that he has seen 3 times as many deaths as in the whole of last year. Jonas Muller reports.
I had absolutely no idea what had happened.
Harry Durose was 21, autistic and disabled with a condition called hypermobility. When a sleeping drug prescription was stopped, he went to a drug dealer.
About a week later, the police rang me and told me that they'd discovered a street drug and it was 500 times more potent than morphine.
Her son died on the 2nd of March.
They're mixing it in anything, any illegal street drug. You don't know what you're taking.
16th last week.
Here at the church on the street in Burnley, they work with former addicts to keep them clean. Pastor Mick Fleming says the emergence of synthetic opioids is a huge problem.
So we're seeing 3 times more deaths in this first quarter than I would have seen in the full year. Hardcore drug users that are highly tolerant, and these people are dying also.
The National Crime Agency believes nitazines are produced in illicit labs in China and brought into the UK.
I've got lots of friends who are still active users.
Danielle is a recovering heroin addict.
It's part luck what you get, and then you go and have it. There's at least 6 I know personally, but there's a lot more, and that's only the last 2-3 weeks who've gone. It's not uncommon round here anymore.
Here they're working with drug and alcohol services to get local communities trained in using the lifesaver drug naloxone, which can reverse the effects of opioids and save the lives of someone who has overdosed.
If you speak to a mother who's lost a son or a daughter, she'll tell you her son or daughter's got the same value as anybody else. And I believe that the police should be carrying this. I believe that this should be in the Times, especially in light of the new epidemic. We're only seeing the tip of the iceberg.
Today, 15 synthetic opioids became Class A drugs.
It makes no difference to me. Whatever this drug is classified as, it's killing people and nobody knows. I just don't want people to think that he was sort of a drug user, because he wasn't. I wake up every morning and that split second I forget that it's happened, and then obviously it has.
Jonas Muller, BBC Northwest Tonight.
Now, at least 11 prisoners have taken their own lives at Cheshire's HMP Style since 2007. That's more than any other women's prison in England. The youngest, Annalise Sanderson, was just 18. The prison says it's made improvements to mental health care, but former inmates who've spoken to the BBC say that more needs to be done, as Dan O'Donoghue reports.
From above, it looks like a charming Cheshire village, with its rows of Victorian houses and manicured lawns. But this is a women's prison, home to some of the UK's most dangerous and most vulnerable inmates.
An investigation's been launched after 2 women died at Style Prison in Cheshire in 1 week.
The family of a teenager who took her own life in Style Prison say her death could have been prevented.
At least 11 prisoners have taken their own lives at Style since 2007, more than any other women's prison in England. 18-year-old Annalise Sanderson was found dead in her cell just weeks before she was due to be released. She'd hanged herself.
Just before Christmas, December 2020, I was notified with a piece of paper that came under the door that an inmate had taken their own life. I was devastated. She was a baby.
The memory of that night still haunts former inmate Francesca Barker-Mills.
Padded up with 22 other women in the houses in Style, and their gut reaction at Annalise dying was sadness, but lacking surprise. They expected it, it was routine, it wasn't a thing of horror and of shock.
Francesca, who served 2 months for fraud, said prisoners were not provided with the right support or care.
There's no hope there. You go there with the weight of the world on your shoulders, knowing you've broken the law and you've been removed from society, and you take ownership of that. But in terms of redemption and in terms of hope and recovery, Style does not provide that.
We've examined reports into several self-inflicted deaths at the prison that highlight a series of failings. An investigation into one death found staff were not confident using a defibrillator. Another probe found mental health checks were not carried out despite the inmate having a history of self-harm. And in the case of Annalise, investigators found regular welfare checks lacking. They also found no emergency code was radioed when she was found. In the years since Annalise's death, Style Prison's mental health budget has tripled to £1.5 million. There are now also weekly welfare checks for prisoners with more complex mental health needs. But another former inmate we spoke to is not convinced the changes will work. Joe Richardson spent 20 weeks in Style in 2018 for a £250 company credit card fraud.
I've never witnessed self-harm like that. I've never seen people's arms and hands and faces so scarred. And that is almost perceived as normal. You've got very violent people, very dangerous people mixed up with very low-end crime, and it's the drugs, the mental health problems, it's all being mixed up and it will explode.
The Ministry of Justice said that mental health support in prisons was being transformed. They said it would include round-the-clock care, extra face-to-face time with specialist staff, and improved self-harm training for all frontline officers.
After hearing about Annalise and speaking to other people that I know, I think we have to have a voice, have to change the prison system for women.
Dan O'Donoghue, BBC North West Tonight.
Now, political and business leaders have written to the Transport Secretary today demanding that the rail operator Avanti West Coast is stripped of its contract. The letter, which has been sent from Transport for the North, says a continuation of the current service is unacceptable. First Group, which owns Avanti, says that changing the operator will not solve fundamental issues like sickness levels and leave policies. A refugee charity is calling on the government to change the law to allow asylum seekers to work while they're waiting for their applications to be processed. The Refugee Council says that if asylum seekers were allowed to make a contribution to society, it would help them and benefit the economy. Mairead Smith has this report.
Sami was just 10 years old when he came to live in Manchester from Pakistan as an asylum seeker.
I have grown up here, this is where I belong, this is my home.
Despite living here for a decade, he's still waiting for refugee status.
It just feels like I'm falling behind, like I'm falling back, let down in some sense by the people I think should be representing me.
You're not able to do paid work, but you're heavily involved in the charity sector, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Currently I'm the co-chair of a national movement called the I Will Movement. I'm also a trustee for Young Roots and Intergenerational England, and I'm also a secondary school governor, and I do a lot of mental health research. I do quite a lot, all over the place. There's nothing I would say no to.
The Commission on the Integration of Refugees is calling for change to help people like Sammy. They say asylum seekers should be given free English lessons and say asylum applications should be processed within 6 months.
They want to get on with their lives, they want to contribute. They don't want to be left in inappropriate accommodation, army barracks, barges, hotels. They want to get on with it. And by getting on with it, they not only help themselves, but they help the rest of us.
The government says it's working to balance support while ensuring people are not incentivised to come to the UK illegally.
Economically, that does not make sense to me, because in my head, if I was working, I would definitely be contributing taxes. I think that would be beneficial for the economy rather than just being a burden.
And for refugees like Al Harith,
I've worked hard to get where I am now.
He says it's still a struggle despite being able to work.
When you come to this country, you start in as a refugee, you start from zero. Most of the people when they came, they don't know the language. It's hard and it's scary.
The 33-year-old came from war-torn Sudan in 2015. He learnt English, gained a master's degree in engineering and now works for a major mining company.
I believe that employer, they need to be aware of us and give us the chance. Don't judge us from our CV and from our background, where we come from. We have strong work ethic because we value the chance we get.
Sammy hopes he will get the same chance to work in the city he calls home.
That's one thing no one can ever take away from me, is knowing that Manchester is my home, because I've never belonged anywhere more than I belong here.
Mairead Smith, BBC North West Tonight.
Now, it was a red letter day in Douglas on the Isle of Man today. They've had photo scandals, they've had illness and conspiracy theories over the past few weeks. It's been a fairly difficult few weeks for the royal family, but royal duties do continue. And today, as you can see, Queen Camilla was on the Isle of Man representing the King to formally confer city status on the capital, Douglas. And from there, Ashley Tracy has sent this report.
A royal visit for this Manx town turned city. It was a warm welcome for Her Majesty Queen Camilla as she arrived in Douglas. The Isle of Man's capital was one of 8 places to be granted the status as part of the late Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. Inside the now City Hall, she delivered a speech on behalf of King Charles and presented the letters patent confirming the elevation.
My husband is so sorry that he cannot be with us today on this extremely special occasion.
A new plaque also marked the honour, after which the Queen took the chance to meet some of the hundreds who turned up to see her and even stopped for a selfie.
She seems really nice. She's been interacting with all the children. It's lovely that she came right up to visit them all and say hello.
The Queen shook her hand. It was really, really cool.
She told us that she has twin grandsons as well. She also said to me it gets easier when they're 2, so hopefully that's the case.
I just want to come out because there's history being made and I thought I'd be part of it.
Her next stop, Government House, meeting local people, dignitaries and charities, including the RNLI, which has its roots in the island and is celebrating its 200th anniversary.
It was very special for me today to be able to introduce some of the volunteers from all 5 lifeboat stations around the Isle of Man, and for her to chat to them and hear what they did in their other lives too.
Douglas's big day is now over in what is actually a pretty challenging period for the royal family, what with the media speculation around the Princess of Wales and the cancer diagnosis the King received just last month. It is something that's not gone unnoticed with the council's officials here, and they say it's made today even more special.
She's taken time out of what is an incredibly difficult time for anybody, never mind somebody of their status, to come to visit us. It is an incredible honour.
The residents of Douglas woke up in a town, but after this royal visit, will tonight go to sleep in a city. Ashley Tracy, BBC North West Tonight in Douglas.
What an exciting day from the city of Douglas. Now, we're going to talk about a lady now called Natalie Yates Bolton. She's a tough woman. She's had to be. She was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma at the age of 22. She beat it. It came back. Then she got breast cancer 3 times. Natalie's from Oldham. She's now 57. She's spent 35 years fighting, but she has finally been told that she is cancer-free. So she's going to celebrate by running all 214 Wainwright peaks in the lakes. Told you she was tough. She's been talking to Katie Barnfield.
For Natalie Yates Bolton, running is not just a hobby. It's something that has helped her claim her life back after surviving cancer 5 times.
I was 22 the first time. It was summer and everything was wonderful, and then I found a little lump above my collarbone. Thought I'd better get that checked out. Didn't think it would be anything, and then it turned out to be Hodgkin's lymphoma. And then 14 years later, I started to feel unwell, and turns out that the lymphoma had come back.
Since then, Natalie has also had breast cancer 3 times, 11 operations, 30 rounds of chemo, and more than 50 rounds of radiotherapy.
I wouldn't recommend it, but I think there are some positives that it certainly teaches you to appreciate everything about life.
She's put that positivity to use for a set of huge physical challenges, so far completing 6 marathons, 3 ultramarathons and 3 triathlons. Her new goal is to hike every Wainwright in England.
My friends who I run with have always been amazing. I remember one time I nearly passed out and they had to literally hold me up. I think you can surprise yourself, and if you see what you can do, there's probably some potential that you didn't realise you had.
Natalie's scans are now showing no evidence of cancer after she was put on a targeted drug called palbociclib by doctors at the Christie Hospital.
I mean, I think it's fantastic. We would always encourage our patients to be as active as they can be. You know, there's quite a lot of evidence that exercise is good in terms of responses to treatment. Some of these newer therapies now, they're not as toxic as we were seeing, and that allows people to continue to work, to, run marathons if that's what they choose to do.
Natalie says the challenges are her own way to celebrate life without the disease that has dominated it for so long. Katie Barnfield, BBC North West Tonight.
We wish her all the very best doing the Wainwrights as well. Now, a few years ago, a student was looking for jobs in a library in Manchester when he discovered a book which has been called a lost literary masterpiece. It was written in 1935 by Jack Hilton. It's called Caliban Shrieks. It's now been republished, and Phil McCann's got the story.
Rebellion came upon me, and I, intended for industry, for being a clean-nosed, respectable, God-fearing climber, surrounded by grime, strict discipline, crowding and the dignity of labour, took to the open road, with visions of liberty, freedom, air, sun and health.
So wrote Jack Hilton about life for a working-class man after the horrors of the Great War, and of the drift of being out of work, homeless.
No more ambition, no set purpose, just drift. Complete scope for nanny goat whimsicalness, and eternally the captain of my soul.
Another Jack Chadwick, stumbled across Jack Hilton's words by mistake one day when he was looking for jobs in Salford's working class movement library.
I went and picked it up, and the bizarre cover gave way to what is an utterly bizarre, unusual, fantastic piece of literature.
Born into what were then terraced slums in Rochdale, Jack Hilton and some of his friends went to the local library and learnt about how to articulate themselves, leading them to protest. But Jack's protesting got him jailed at Strangeways, so he wrote what became a book. The title was inspired by something he'd learnt at the library: Shakespeare, Caliban from The Tempest, who resented being enslaved.
I think now we can say it's one of the best pieces of literature ever produced in the north of England, and probably one of the most experimental pieces of literature produced in the 20th century.
This Jack, wanted to find out what had happened to Jack Chadwick. So after drawing a blank online, he put up these posters, in pubs where he'd heard he used to drink in the 70s.
There was a woman eavesdropping at the bar, came up to us and said, "You know what, love? I think I know who you're on about."
A few streets away from here, Jack was able to find a woman who was the wife of one of Jack Hilton's drinking friends. She didn't know it, but she had the rights to publish Jack Hilton's literary works. It was amongst a number of unspecified items that Jack Hilton had left to them in his will. Now, this book, by a man who George Orwell said had a considerable literary gift, is back in shops and is being hailed by modern-day reviewers as the lost voice of the North. Phil McCann, BBC North West Tonight.
What a great detective story. Right, Richard is here, as you can see. Hi, Rich. Right, reports in the papers this morning that Manchester United are going to try and pinch the England football manager. Anything in it?
let's call it informed newspaper speculation, Roger. Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who, after buying 25% of the club, he drives football operations, is reported to rate Gareth Southgate very highly. Maybe it points to, as well to a gradual rebuild of United. We know Dan Ashworth is coming in from Newcastle as sporting director, Chief Executive Omar Barada from Manchester City, a process that Sir Jim spoke about on the Geraint Thomas Cycling Club podcast.
If we get all the details right, if we get all the right people in the right boxes doing the right things, that sporting elite environment, underneath all that, it's sort of supportive, and you've got people who are competitive and intense, but at the end of the day, they're good people.
What have United fans said?
Mixed reaction, Roger. A significant proportion of Manchester United fans believe Erik ten Hag deserves more time during the FA Cup semi-final, showing signs of improvement. Here's what some of the fans had to say to me a little earlier today.
I really don't want him. I don't like his the style of play.
If they decide to bring him in, why not? Can't be as bad as some of the previous ones we've had.
If we keep on playing like we are, then by the end of the season keep on getting better and better. It'd be ridiculous if we got rid of him for Southgate.
His club career, although he's done well with England, not exactly stellar.
No, done really well with England. Relegation to the Championship, though, with Middlesbrough, his only club job so far. That was a decade and a half ago, though, Roger, so perhaps we shouldn't read too much into that. He is showing quite often a cool edge under pressure, isn't he? Something United diehards will want to see, but many think he is a surprise choice.
Underwhelming. It's not really a name that is going to get United fans excited. I think the names on the shortlist aren't really names to get us excited. I prefer Ten Hag to stay than Southgate. If he wants to get rid of Ten Hag, I think you can have no complaints, but if it's Southgate, I'm a bit underwhelmed by it.
I said it is a surprise choice, would be a surprise choice. Gareth Southgate, who's currently preparing for Euro 24, Roger, has a contract that runs out with the FA in December.
Yeah.
I should mention as well, Liverpool have appointed sporting director Richard Hughes. He's come from Bournemouth.
Yeah, he's a very capable fellow as well. Thank you very much indeed, Richard. Thank you. Now, you'll appreciate this. We often do stories, don't we, about finding things in the loft. But stories of young love for today's generation might not stand the test of time, Rich. Future descendants won't find threads of Snapchat messages, for example, or emails in a box in the loft.
Old slippers.
Yeah, exactly. However, Jack, this is a great story. Jack was a 19th century sailor. Elizabeth was his great love, later became his wife. And the love letters that he wrote to her from all around the world eventually passed down to their great-great-great-granddaughter.
Wow.
Her name's Jackie MacDonald. She lives in Kendal. She's turned them into a song, and she's been chatting to Juliet Phillips.
Dear Elizabeth, I hope this letter finds you just the same as it leaves me.
Modern folk music featuring words written almost 180 years ago.
Oh, dear Elizabeth.
The romantic letters sent by seafarer Jack to his dear Elizabeth whilst he was away at sea were passed down to their descendant Jackie.
Every sentence begins with Dear Elizabeth. Dear Elizabeth, we had a storm. Dear Elizabeth, I hope this letter finds you just the same as it leaves me, in good health. And this letter is addressed to Dear Elizabeth, the love of my life. They were my great-great-great-grandparents, and he was obviously very smitten with her, and they did eventually marry, and that's how I'm talking to you today.
Jackie released several records as a folk singer in the 60s and even sang for the Queen. Country music star Nathan Carter has known Jackie since he was a child growing up in Liverpool. He remembered her singing Dear Elizabeth back then and asked if he could release it on his new album.
I found it so romantic, and the way he wrote the letters, I'll see you soon, goodbye for now, yours Jack, I'll bring you a present back. All these little lines were for me it was like a little movie wrapped up in a song. Things in life have changed so much in the past 180 years since this story was actually written, but the actual meaning behind the letters is the fact that this man is in love with the woman that he's separated from. Things like that are never going to change.
My great-grandfather sailed the seas in a clipper as mate.
So what would Jackie's great-great-great-grandparents think of the fact their letters are now being heard by music fans across the world?
I think they'd be astounded, myself. He's just expressing his love for someone, and now it's become a musical item heard by many thousands of people.
Juliet Phillips, BBC North West Tonight, Kendal.
It's a lovely story, isn't it? Right, let's move on to the weather. Abby is here. It's Wednesday night, as you can see. How's it looking?
It is, well, it was spring equinox today, but our weather is actually going to turn a little bit more wintry, I think, over the next few days. So a drop in temperatures coming, a significant wind chill by the end of the week as well. But thankfully, I think tomorrow looks to be a drier day. Yes, there will still be a little bit of patchy light rain, but I think we should see a few breaks developing in the cloud. So a couple of bright spells later into the afternoon as well. Now, we do have a cold front moving through, low pressure very much in charge. So very changeable conditions. Cold front moving through overnight into Friday. That's going to bring a little bit of patchy rain, and that's when we'll start to open the door, really open the gates to the much cooler air moving in from Friday. Overnight tonight, well, we did see some rain today, didn't we? That cleared, so we have seen some late sunshine. That is going to lead to some clearer spells overnight tonight with a mix of variable cloud as well. These will be our temperatures, 5 or 6 degrees Celsius, so perhaps a little bit chillier as we start the day tomorrow. But I think it should be a dry and bright start. Cloud will build and we will see some patchy light rain tomorrow, but you can see on the graphics it really won't amount to much. For the vast majority, it should be a mostly dry day. We could just see a couple of hefty showers moving through later, but that cloud will break at times as well. So some brighter spells as we head towards the end of the day, a bit like today. Temperatures 13 or 14 degrees Celsius, so a little bit milder than today, but those temperatures still above average for the time of year. However, all change. We are moving into a much cooler air mass through Friday and into the weekend. And that will affect not only the temperatures but also the feel of things with that quite significant wind chill. You'll start to notice it from Friday, which looks to be a mix of sunshine and showers. The showers are really well scattered at this moment in time though. Temperatures on paper 10 or 11 degrees Celsius, which is pretty spot on, but factor in the wind chill and this is how it will feel. So more like 5 or 6 degrees Celsius in 1 or 2 places, and the winds are set to strengthen over the weekend. So Saturday again, that mix of sunshine and showers, but the showers will become more frequent. We might even see 1 or 2 turn a little bit wintry. So like I say, spring equinox, yes, longer days, yes, but feeling more like winter. So fairly strong north or northwesterly winds on Saturday. It will feel like about 3 or 4 degrees Celsius, I think, Rog.
Have a seat. What do you think of the broom cupboard?
It's snug. It's very cosy.
It's one way of putting it, isn't it? It is a bit cosy, isn't it?
Yeah.
A few people have commented about the sound levels. I'm really sorry if you're having problems with the sound at home. Some people saying that I'm not loud enough.
Oh, that makes a change.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought. But we'll get it sorted. We're in here for a short time. The builders are in the main place, of course.
Sprucing it up.
Sprucing it up. Yeah. It'll be great when it's done, but please bear with us. Thank you, as always, for your company tonight. Katie Walderman's got the late news at 10:30. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Bye-bye. There we go.